Welcome to the next episode of the Art of Lifting podcast. Today I'm joined by Gabby. Did you want to just introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Gabby Martinez. I'm a 69 kilo lifter in the US, and I'm super happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me. I think we just jump in. I just want to ask how you got into powerlifting, how you found it in the first place, because you've been doing it since, I can't remember when your first comp was, 2014, so it's 10 years
Yes.
in the sport. And you're very young to be in the sport for 10 years, so I'm really intrigued kind of how you got into powerlifting.
So it was kind of not my decision to get into powerlifting initially, if I'm being really honest. I was in high school at the time, and I was one of those athletes that did pretty much every single sport that was available because I was at a very small school. So they kind of needed us to do every sport to fill those teams up. And I think at the time I was having a very difficult time personally. And my assistant principal kind of recognized that. I didn't get into trouble or anything, but he just kind of walked up to me when I was just hanging out in the gym one day and asked me if I would be willing to do a powerlifting meet. Okay, it was probably not quite as nice as that. It was more so like, you're going to do this, and if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again, but we're going to make you do this just once. And he told me I didn't have to wear the suits if I didn't want to, because in high school, we only had equipped lifting. And then I did it, and I hated the suits, but I was like, I think I'm going to keep doing this. And then it just kind of spiraled, and I stopped doing the other sports and only did powerlifting.
That's really cool. Have you seen this teacher like since you've achieved all that what you have? Like that's such a cool thing that it was just like just try it. You don't have to do it again, but just do it. And you've obviously achieved so much.
He had been part of powerlifting in the US since the 80s. So I think before the USAPL became the USAPL, I can't remember what the name of the federation was, but he was part of the original federation. So he's been around quite a while. And I do see him every now and then. So he'll do a meet in somewhere close to me in Texas. And I'll go in and handle him, and he'll come and help handle me if vice versa, if that's the case. So it's been very cool.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So you mentioned you played kind of almost every sport beforehand. Was there a sport in particular that you did, or was it just try everything and just kind of take part?
So my parents were very much so like stuck me in sports as soon as I was able to walk. I think my dad actually lied about my age to get me on a t-ball team when I was four or five. So I did t-ball, softball all the way through high school. Softball was one of the things where I think if I hadn't done powerlifting, I would have gone to college on a softball scholarship. Or I would have tried to go to college on a softball scholarship. But I had lots of other sports that I think I liked more than softball. Softball was just something my parents had always grown me up with. And so I think I felt like I was supposed to do it. But I played soccer for a little bit, which I didn't love. I did a lot of gymnastics, and I really liked gymnastics until we moved to Texas when I was roughly 11 years old, I think, and they just didn't have a gym, so I couldn't keep doing it. I also played basketball, volleyball. I'm trying to think what else I did. I did throwing and track, and I was also a runner in track, believe it or not. I don't like running a whole lot, though, so I'll be very clear there. So I did all kinds of sports.
That's really cool. Really, really cool. So you mentioned obviously you started with equipped because that was kind of all there was at the time in like, I think it's still a very big thing, isn't it? With like colleges and stuff in America, like it is very big still. You mentioned you hated the suits, which I'm not surprised. I've not done equipped, but I will never try it because of the suits. So did you compete in the suits anyway? Like, did you just kind of suck it up for the sake of being as good as you could within the sport and it's what everyone else did?
Yeah, so the culture around equipped lifting in Texas particularly is a little extreme, is what I will say. We were encouraged to be in suits that were probably 1 or 2 sizes too tight. So basically, if you can get it on, that's what you're going to wear, regardless of how much it hurts, regardless of if you think you can hit standards. If knee wraps aren't making you tear up like from physical pain, then it's not tight enough. And I did that so high school wasn't that bad. Because my high school coach at the time, my assistant principal, did not like that approach. He kind of wanted everyone to just be comfortable, but this is how we do powerlifting with the knee wraps and the suits. And then I got to college, and college is where it was like, if you're not in pain, you're not doing it right. And I did equipped until I graduated college. I had done a couple of raw meets, but I didn't even do my first national raw meet until after I graduated college. I think it was in 2021. That was the year I graduated college. So I kind of wish that raw lifting in the collegiate space was bigger or more appreciated on the team level, but unless you're from Midland or A&M, I think equipped is still kind of the default. But yeah, it doesn't have to be that painful is all I will say. And I have like a little bit of a fear of closed spaces. And so I remember putting on a bench shirt one time and everyone was telling me, you need to size down. You're not supposed to be able to just slip it on by yourself. Like you need at least 3 people helping you. And I had a straight up panic attack. Like I was stuck in the suit with my arms up by my ears and I couldn't get it on and I was just panicking. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of that.
It's actually really interesting you said that, because that was one thing, because I'm very claustrophobic, especially when it comes to like my upper body. And like one thing I've said, like I love, like bench is my favorite lift. And I've always liked the idea of a bench shirt, but I'm like, I don't think I would actually be able to do it. Like I think I would freak out in one. Like, and the fact that you've just said, obviously, like the kind of getting stuck in it, like that would be horrible. Like I don't think I could do it for that reason either. Like I just couldn't. Yeah. So with equipped then, I was going to ask you if it's something you think you'd go back to. I'm guessing probably not from that.
No, I think if someone was wanting to like pay me to see me go all out with it, I would think about it. I was pretty good at it, but I think if I had done equipped by itself long term, and I never did just raw, I think it would have burned me out from the sport. I think I would have associated like being in pain with powerlifting too much. So personally, I don't think I would ever choose to do that. But you know, if somebody wants to pay me to do it again, I will absolutely try and total 700.
What's the price? We can see if we get any offers.
I guess it depends on when somebody asks me.
Okay, so
paying off my tuition.
I assume the choice to switch to raw then was it just because you didn't enjoy equipped? Was there a thought process behind it? Maybe thinking you could be more competitive raw? What was the rationale behind it?
So I, at the time when I was in college, my first couple of years, back in 2016, 2017, 2017, 2018 was the school year that I stopped competing. I was doing ROTC at the time. But like raw had not entered my mind until after 2018 nationals in Ohio, collegiate nationals in Ohio. And honestly, as an equipped lifter who was thinking she was only ever going to do equipped and, be a master's lifter only doing equipped, raw training was just to make equipped training better. So when I did that raw meet in 2019, it was just kind of let's see how strong we can get raw and get us ready to do an equipped prep for the spring. And it ended up going a lot better than I thought. And then I was looking at numbers from the nationals in that weight class and like a weight class below and above. And I was like, maybe if I actually did this long term, maybe there'd be something there. But that raw meet I did in 2019, Iron Wars, that was the first raw meet where I was ever like trying to be strong raw and not just trying to qualify for an equipped meet. So yeah, that transition was weird. And then I still ended up doing equipped and didn't care about raw again until 2021. And I also do have to thank Cassandra Carlson because she and I was trying to compete with her in equipment. And then naturally COVID-19 happened and we didn't have nationals that year in 2020. And she, I don't know what her motivations were in focusing on going raw, but because she did that, I was like, she's my rival, like I have to beat her. And so I started, looking at her weekly training with raw. And so I started training hard at raw. And I think honestly, she's why I even signed up for Raw Nationals 2021.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. And with like, just generally when you found powerlifting, like I guess to start with, it was just a case of, oh, you found a sport that you kind of enjoy, I'll stick with it. Was there a point where you kind of realized how competitive you could be? Because obviously over the last couple of years, like you were in USAPL to start with, weren't you? I think, yeah. So switching over, obviously you managed to qualify for Worlds this year, like huge achievement, especially like the battle at Nationals as well was so fun to watch. Like it was such a good battle in your weight class. Was there a point where you kind of thought, oh, I can be really good at this? Or was it just, oh, I quite like it, I'll train anyway and just see where I go?
So I don't know if it's just because my parents are from Texas or if it's just an American thing in general, but I was always taught, like, if you're going to do a sport, like, you're going to the Olympics. Like, you're going to be really good at this. And if you're not good at it or you don't like it, don't do it, because then you're not going to the Olympics. You're not getting the scholarship. So when I found powerlifting, I think the first couple of meets, I was just trying to figure out if I liked it. And then I started winning. Because I started in Texas high school powerlifting, which I think was supposed to be like an extension of the original weight classes before they changed to the IPF standards for USAPL. So I think now Texas high school kind of mimics USPA, but originally I don't think it did. So I had a very, very hard time figuring out what the next step was, like which fed after high school I was going to go into. So my high school coach was talking to me about USAPL, but I didn't know they had a website. I could not find any USAPL lifters on Instagram, and I tried very hard to like find people in this sport, specifically women, and I just could not find it. So what ended up happening was I went to college based on the powerlifting team because I didn't know what I wanted to do after, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my college experience. I didn't have like a profession in mind when I went. So there were a couple other schools I was looking at, and I was researching the powerlifting teams, and I was kind of stuck between two schools, but I did end up picking UTSA for the powerlifting team. So I had to kind of find my way to get into the Fed, and then it didn't hit me that I could try to get on a world team until my first collegiate nationals, where I accidentally tied for second and then got, I think, fifth on body weight. And I was not thinking I was going to break top 10. And that was the same thing at my first raw nationals. I was thinking I was going to maybe break top 10 and that I would be super happy with that. And again, accidentally tied for second and got fourth on body weight. So I do need to stop tying for second, but yeah, I think if I hadn't just done it, I would have never known.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also like that you brought up like the mentality side of it. So one thing that I always find really interesting with a lot of the American lifters, and why I'm such a big fan of a lot of you, like there's this, like you're just confident in what you can do, which I think a lot of British lifters, like British people generally aren't very, like they're not outwardly confident. They don't speak things into existence, or at least not in front of people. Like they're very much internally believing in yourself, but they don't vocalize it. And I know in the past, it's like when the talk of the sweep and everything happened for Worlds this year, it was like, oh, they're so arrogant. I'm like, okay, but are they this good because there's that arrogance there? Which I don't think it is arrogance. I think it is just competitive nature, probably. Yeah, but it's competitive nature, isn't it? Like if you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to do well. And I've always kind of said, I'm like, obviously not everyone is naturally like that, and you don't want to force that. And there's a lot of like, I think Evie Corrigan's a really good example of a lifter who is absolutely not like that at all, but she's still just as good, obviously, like really good. But I do think one of the things that I think helps with the Americans being so dominant in a lot of the weight classes is that mindset of you talk things into existence. Like you have the confidence in yourself, you believe you can take it far, and that's why it happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's also why a lot of American lifters kind of burn out really quickly, because I think like the mindset of like the Olympics, or just like our version of the Olympics in powerlifting now is Sheffield. So like being able to do that, like that's always like number one in our heads. Even if we don't think that we can get there, I think that's still something that everyone is looking at when they join the sport. And then, hopefully at some point it hits you that like this is a possibility. But for me, all sports, it was always like, you got to at least try to be the very tippy top best in the sport. And if you fall short of that, you're still going to be so much farther than you would have if you had never done it. So I think that's part of where the mentality is. But the arrogance thing in the US, yeah, we do. It kind of makes it fun. I think we're taught that too in sports in high school and stuff, but it is what it is.
I don't think it's a bad trait. I think it's a good trait and I think, to be fair, like from what I've seen of the American lifters, like everyone, like I don't think I wouldn't have put you in the arrogant side, but I do think like they're never doing it in a rude way. It's like, no, I'm going to be the best, because if you don't believe in yourself, then like you say, as long as you put all of your effort in to get to where you want to go, like you can't really be disappointed because you've tried. One thing I want to speak to you about was your battle at nationals. Was at the start of this year. I wanted to know, like mentally, obviously going in, you knew it was going to be somewhat close. I can't remember how close the totals were in the end, but how do you prepare yourself for those battles? How do you mentally approach those competitions?
So the battle that I was in this year was a lot different than I think in previous years. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older, or if it's just because I am genuinely, I admire Jackie and Chelsea very much. So it could be either of those two things, but While I was training, part of training wasn't going very well, if I'm being really honest. Squats were not feeling good, I don't think, for that prep. Deadlifts, I was kind of like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Kind of a deal. And I think I just came to terms with the fact that, like, this is a sport. And at the end of the day, if someone is just better than me on the day, then they're just better. And because I like Chelsea and Jackie, I wasn't going to be really mad about it. Because quite honestly, any one of us could have taken gold and gotten that invite, and I think it would have been deserved. I am really glad that I came out on top, but I think next year it's going to be a lot different. So we'll see if Chelsea decides to come back to 16. I hope she does. But Jackie benches 300 now, so we'll see. But I won't be mad, if I end up not taking the world invitation or winning. I think at this point in the sport and where I'm at age-wise and just life-wise, I still want to win. I'm just going to make that very clear. I want to win. I'm not going to be happy if I don't win, but I'm not going to be mad or upset if someone else is just better than me on the day, because that is the sport.
I really like that. Do you think it's the maturing as an athlete in thinking like you can only control what you can control, and all that you can control is what you lift on the day? You also squatted your first 200.5 at that comp by the looks of it. I didn't realize that was the first time you squatted over 200 in comp. How did that feel?
Honestly, I was mad they didn't put 202. I think that was the first thing I said when I walked off the platform. I was like, we hit, I think I hit 203 in that prep. And I was like, you knew I could have done 200. And he was like, we just wanted to take the squat record. He's like, it'll be fine. So, yeah. Yeah, there will be many more 200 pluses to come.
Definitely. Was that the time that was your class was the one where the squat record was literally broken like 4 or 5 times, wasn't it? Like it was literally just back and forth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a good flight to watch. Okay, so training since then, obviously you did your first worlds.
Yes.
What was the experience like, and kind of what did you expect it to be, and then how was the experience?
I wasn't sure what to expect. I've never traveled internationally. We travel quite a bit in the US, with flights and having layovers and having really long travel days and stuff. But I was really nervous about the time change. I was nervous about if there was going to be a significant language barrier, and like the currency exchange and all of that, and like figuring out where to train, and if the culture around training would be a little different here or in Lithuania. And then the competition itself, I was trying really hard to not put pressure on myself for it, and training was not really going well, if I'm being honest. I'm one of those people that likes a really long period to train in between meets. I don't like to do back-to-back meets, which I know is really common to do in Europe. But in the US, I haven't had worlds to worry about until I switched to PA. So it was usually just, collegiate nationals, take the rest of the year off, prepare for the next collegiate nationals. The do raw nationals, they're 6 months apart. So I think the turnover got me a little bit. I wasn't able to shift my mindset and reset a little bit. And so the leftover expectations, I think, weighed on me quite a bit for Worlds. And then the travel and the time change itself didn't bother me that much by themselves. But I think like going through the experience of like a semi-culture shock, I think got to me a little bit. And I think I was mid panic attack the entire meet, if I'm being really honest. I was so nervous and I was dissociating. Like I was not inside my body when all of that was going on. But it was still really fun. Everyone was very nice, and it hit me that like how big the sport is. Like how many other people from other countries are just as in love with powerlifting as I am. And for me, that was extremely validating and a little bit emotional when I was watching the first session from the warm-up area on the top, but it was interesting. And I think Lithuania was beautiful, by the way. I'm really glad that we got to do it there. Otherwise, I don't think I've ever would have gone to Lithuania, just because I didn't know what was out there. But I will say, for everyone that was competing with me at the time, I'm very grateful that you guys were all there, because everyone was very nice and accommodating. And I think they could tell I was a little nervous too. But it was fun. I really hope I get to go back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to do, like you say, if you've not left the United States before as well, like first time traveling internationally, like all of these things come out, like it's a lot to deal with in one go. Like I'm really not surprised that you kind of felt like you were dissociating through the meet. Like it's a lot. also, like you mentioned, the turnaround, because nationals for you guys was in March, and then it was literally 3 months and 1 day after you competed at Worlds. Like that's not long at all. I know, like the GB lifters, I know they are kind of used to doing, I think British used to always be in March anyway, and then June was Worlds, so they're kind of used to that turnaround, and like they usually have Europeans in there too, so they are, like you mentioned, like other countries I think are a bit more used to a shorter turnaround. But am I right in thinking next year it's going to be even shorter? Am I right in thinking nationals is April? Yeah. Yeah.
They sure, they moved it down. I think it
can
was
say
to
it because I'm
accommodate
not part of the
Sheffield.
Fed. I don't understand the logic there.
So I think the reason they moved it to, I don't know if it was just cost. So maybe it was just cheaper to do it in April, or if it was to accommodate Sheffield athletes, and they're planning to have Sheffield athletes compete at nationals. I still don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I've heard of like a shift or like restructuring of the IPF calendar occurring at some point. So I'm kind of hoping that happens, because I would love to have a big meet in the fall and then have, our US competitive, selection process in the spring, or vice versa even.
I think it would also be good to have a good period of time between nationals and worlds, just for you guys to also progress. And like, it's going to be easier to scout if you've literally competed 2-3 months before. Like, I know the British calendar got moved around this year, so nationals for us is actually next week, so it's in November, and that's where they're going to then select the team for next year. So we, like I'm not going to make Team GB this year, but Team GB have a good 7-8 months to then just go off and train. Like, I think Euros is in March, which is possibly why they've done it, because our nationals used to always be March. But it just gives time for you to put your head down and make sure, one, you stay healthy, but also it gives a bit more of a, I guess, surprise when you then get to Worlds, because it's not easy to put on loads to your total in 2 months. Like, it's going to be hard. It's back-to-back preps. So yeah, hopefully some kind of schedule change happens, especially with Sheffield being like the start of the year. Like, I guess 5 months between Sheffield and Worlds is enough time, but then how does that work with international selection? Have they put anything out for your guys' international selection yet for next year? Has anything been said?
They might have. I don't know though. I haven't seen it. I know last year they were talking about it quite a bit, but this year, unless Meg Scanlon's posted about it, I don't think I've seen anything. So I'm waiting on her to post things.
Well, I follow everyone, and I've not seen anything either. So we'll say nothing's been announced. So I always like to look at the difference in how other countries do their selection as well. Like, I always find it really interesting compared to ours. Because I think this year we've now got Matt Gowrie as our head coach, and I'm saying we as if I'm part of the team. I'm absolutely not part of the team, but the selection process. Right, true. We'll say that. But yeah, so Matt Gowrie's like the selection process that him and Peach, who he's working with, have come out with is very similar to what you guys had this year just gone. There's like the Carpino totals, and then if you win your weight class and hit those totals, you're automatically selected. So they've kind of brought that over, which makes me wonder if they're going to change what you guys have, because I'm guessing that was probably his idea for the year just gone. So now that your coach has changed, possibly change it, but it'll be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Matt does a really good job of advocating for lifters. So I have a feeling if that was his thought process, that will probably not be what we end up doing, which is why he's not, coaching for us anymore, which is honestly, I'm really bummed out about. So we'll see. You guys, I mean, if you guys get Matt Gowrie, GB they better pop off.
It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. Like, I'm looking forward to watching it all. And yeah, I think especially like GB have got like some lifters have literally just been popping off out of nowhere. I do genuinely think a big part of it was people moving over from USAPL. Like, I think it's helped across the board. I think people were just so much hungrier for the Worlds just gone. And then kind of like, I don't know how, did you watch a lot of Worlds last year or this year when you were there?
Like the one I competed at?
Yeah.
So I watched a little bit of it. I didn't see the last day.
Okay. But yeah, I was going to say, I think Duran's winning in the 83s, I feel like lit a fire under all of Britain. Literally all of Britain.
Yeah, being in the room when that happened, that was crazy. Like,
I'm not someone that gets particularly emotional or anything, but literally I was watching at home. I don't know Duran's personally. I've seen him at meets and stuff before, but literally I was watching and I was actually like emotional watching a powerlifting meet. I was like, what is happening? This isn't normal.
Yeah, I was very torn. I was like, this is like, I have my teammate on the platform, but also like I'm starting to feel like the compelling energy in the room, and like I don't know who to cheer for.
Very conflicting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely did still cheer for my my teammate too, but it was awesome to see. It was awesome to watch.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I'm a massive Russ fan as well. Like, I think even if Duran didn't hit his last deadlift, like, it still would have been like, what has just happened? Like, it was a really good. It's
No,
just
I
an
think that
amazing
battle
battle.
was really good for him because the thing with these battles and part of like the American like competitive thing is like when we do get beaten, oh my goodness, the fire that it lights. And I think honestly, sometimes when they're very vocal and they are more on the arrogant scale, it does kind of challenge the other competitors. And so then the battles get more and more compelling and they get closer and closer, which is really cool to watch. So I'm super excited to continue to see that one go on.
I am as well. I assume you watch Sheffield. I don't know what the time would be like for you guys to watch it.
I think it's just really early in the morning for us.
Do you tend to tune in normally, or?
Yes, I do sometimes miss a lot of squats, but I'm one of those people that will watch live streams on repeat while I'm training. So there's that too.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I do the same thing. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I really like having music on when I train sometimes, but sometimes I can't handle the noise. So that's when I'll put either like a lifting podcast or just I'll have Wells on my laptop in the corner and be like, oh, I'll just watch that and listen while I train.
Oh yeah, yeah. If I mute my video when I post it, it's because I'm listening to an audiobook. 100%.
That's actually something I want to talk to you about as well. Like, so you typically train at home, don't you? You have a home gym. How do you find training at home? Because I also train at home. Very rarely I go to a gym and train just with some friends if I'm feeling like I need to be a bit more social and get out of hiding. But I wanted to know how you find training at home. I don't know if your partner trains with you or anything, but do you find it hard to motivate yourself sometimes to train at home, or is it just something that you're just accustomed to? Do you prefer it?
So, so there are a couple of like pros and cons for both. I will say I do hope that there is another gym that pops up that is able to like cultivate like a really healthy lifting culture or more of a positive lifting culture. Because I did leave a gym, and part of that was why I built my home gym because I won that combo rack, I won the bar, but I had to try to figure out how to pay for everything else and set it up and make room. But I think identifying that the lifting culture that I was around constantly from the time I got to college until I decided to leave, it was just like really negatively affecting me, and I don't think I realized it. So getting away from that was really helpful for me, but I do miss having a lot of people around that I can talk to that that get it, that are powerlifters, and we can share equipment and have all of this and have these conversations. I do miss that. I will say though, having a home gym is so much more convenient. I don't have to drive 20 minutes to go to the gym, and I don't feel like I need to spend 4 hours because I'm driving so far. I can just go downstairs for an hour and a half, get all my stuff done, and go back upstairs. The only times that I think it's hard for me to go downstairs right now to train, because my garage is on the first floor and I'm on the second floor, is like when I have other things going on. But when that's the case, I probably should be prioritizing other things like completing my master's thesis or taking care of the kitten that we have. It's usually stuff like that where if I don't want to train, it's because I probably shouldn't be training. So, but I think that that's uncommon. I know a lot of other people have struggled with motivation and stuff, and it's not usually that I don't want to go train. Sometimes it's just that I'm having a hard time with the fact that I shouldn't be training right now, like especially with my finger being kind of busted and I can't deadlift at least for another couple weeks.
I also saw that. What did you bang it on something and it's like taking all the skin off? I saw this earlier on your story.
Yeah, no, so it's let me see if I have something to. So I was trying to scrape some ice out at work. My job is to like scrape ice so that people can get antibodies and stuff out of our freezer. And one of the box, it was just a little box that was stuck in a metal shelf, and the metal shelves are very thin, so like they're thinner than this. And it was frozen to the shelf. The box was, and so I was trying to poke the box off the shelf, and I hit it as hard as I could, and I hit like that, and it got the end of my finger, and
I can literally see it on the camera.
Yeah, so it's like bruised. So yeah, I have like the part that's all messed up. That blood got, it went into the shelf, but the most of it's just swelling. So yeah, no, that was really dumb that I did that. But it's healing up really good, so I'll be able to deadlift I think in a couple weeks. I just need the bruising to go away. But yeah, stuff like that. That's the only time I have a hard time going down to the gym is for that. But I think it's just because it's part of my general life routine at this point. So if I don't train, that's what bothers me. Not like trying to make myself go train.
Yeah, I think when you get to a point within powerlifting that it is just part of your routine, it's almost, I don't want to say it's like it's like a job, because I wouldn't want to think of it as a job. Like, it is something I also enjoy, but it's part of my routine in the same way that like work is part of my routine. Like for you, I guess studying is part of your like routine. Like there'll be periods where you need to prioritize other things other than lifting, but because it's part of your routine, it's like I also need to fit that in. Is that, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really nice that I can just go downstairs and bench and do most of my entire session downstairs. I do still have to do a couple of accessories at a commercial gym down the street, but for the most part, we're adding stuff in, so I don't have to have another membership.
I actually do the exact same thing. There's a gym, it's like a 5-10 minute drive, so I actually do 2 accessory days a week, and then I do 3 main lift days a week, and then I literally just drive to the gym, do my accessories, and okay, I'm done. But yeah, I'm also doing the same. I'm also doing the same in that I want to make my gym full enough that I don't have to do that. But no, I actually really enjoy having accessory days as well, because like at the end of my XPD or at the end of my main lifts, like I will still do my accessories, but I don't want to. Like I want to just get done. Where having actual accessories, like I love accessories so much, and it means I can just go in and like bro out for like an hour, hour and a half, and I'm like, that's such a nice session, and it's less mentally taxing, because I mean accessories don't require as much focus as XPD.
Very true, very true. Yeah, I do kind of miss the days of before I knew what powerlifting training was like supposed to look like. You know, you're supposed to hit not max out or 5x5s every day, where I would just sit on machines and go through all of them on one side and do like a 3x10, and then go all the way up on the other side on the other day and do all the arm machines. I do kind of miss days like that.
Okay, I do as well. I also was going to say I like what you said about powerlifting communities as well, because that's one thing. Like the area I live in, there's not a local powerlifting gym. Like I have to drive at least half an hour to go to a powerlifting gym, and there's literally like one in the area. The next nearest one is nearly 2 hours away. And I do think one thing, like obviously everyone talks about powerlifting communities being this amazing, really positive thing, and for the most part, I would definitely say they are. But I also found like there was another gym as well, like that I used to go to, and it's like sometimes being in the environment, depending on who's part of that culture, actually you're better off being kind of on your own and shutting yourself away a little bit. Like even if other people are just like, even if they're not necessarily saying things about your training or your session, like just being around people that may be having bad sessions themselves, like it can impact you as well, I think. And it's nice to be able to get away from the community sometimes, I think, and just you only have yourself then to focus on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think it was just the nature of like the fact that the gym had mostly, you know, very young college students. And so, you know, you get a lot of college students around who are still, you know, figuring out life and like who they want to be when they grow up, and they're all very competitive and they're there, you know, to win basically. So I think it was just a lot of, you know, people didn't say things to keep other people in check. And then when I found out I was autistic, you know, I found out there were a lot of people that were making fun of me. And I was like, you know, I'm trying to be in an environment that's going to make me better. And if I'm just spending all of my time like not knowing who I'm allowed to talk to without getting made fun of, then it's not being beneficial anymore. And it's unfortunate. And I feel like they've done a lot of work to kind of help create a more positive environment in that gym. But honestly, I just don't think it's worth me trying to go back and like having to fight for every single inch of respect that I have.
No.
But other gyms, I did go to another gym temporarily right after I left there while I was getting my gym set up. And I will say I did really like that gym. That one's called Primal Strength and Conditioning. I did really like that one. And I know a couple of the owners there too, and they're very nice. So if you're in San Antonio, that's a good gym to go to.
Yeah, I think although there are obviously, like with anything in life, there's going to be negative areas, negative groups. But when you find a powerlifting gym that is supportive, there's literally nothing like it as well. But I again, like I will sometimes drive 2 hours to train at a gym because I know that everyone there is like, it's the best environment to be in.
Honestly, yeah, I would totally do that too, 2 times a week.
So yeah, I think it's lovely to be able to train at home as well. Like I think where people sometimes struggle with the discipline side of it, training at home, I do think the pros often outweigh the cons. And also, like you said, it's lovely being able to just, like I go outside to my garage, hour and a half, I'm done. I don't have to drive anywhere. Yeah. I can literally just finish what I'm doing. Even if I take a break from work, I just take a couple of hours break, go outside, train, come in, eat, go back to work. Like there's less planning, in your day. It's just easier to fit things in.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I don't have to share things. So that's another thing that I like about being in the garage gym. So like if anyone is coming to train with me, like I know who they are, you know, there's an understanding, like, you know, sometimes if I'm in a specific mood, like I don't really want to talk while we're training. And when I was going to a gym, I always felt really bad when I like didn't have the capacity to like talk to a lot of people. And people always thought that I was really mean and stuff. So it is nice to not have to worry about that all the time. But it is also nice to go to places like Boston, Massachusetts and visit a gym and have a good time too. So
No, I completely agree. I don't want to say I struggle to share equipment, because I absolutely don't mind. Like if I go to a gym and I'm using equipment, anyone can ask to work in with me. That is not a problem. But having to change the rack heights all the time, having to
yeah,
strip plates off and on, just an effort I don't
especially when
need.
you're in a rush too. But like it's a, you know, you're sharing all the space anyway. So then you have to be like, okay, but can I do 2 sets? And then you can just have the rack because I have to leave. So then there's that too, yeah.
Definitely. So we'll go back to your training. I wanted to know kind of what motivates you. I know you, like we spoke about obviously how you approached your battle at nationals last year, which was obviously really close, and you just kind of said almost like accept it is what it is and just do your best. Are you someone that is kind of externally motivated with your training, like seeing like, let's say Chelsea or Jackie, seeing them hit massive lifts, like does that make you kind of hungry to push more? Or are you quite just focused on yourself and just do what you're doing and not really look at what others are doing?
I think it depends. I think it depends on how my training's going, because sometimes I don't want to see other people's training, and other times I'm like fixating on it. So I just kind of let like for the mentality for whatever block I'm in. But I will say that typically I have done this thing where I pick a rival who I know is a little bit stronger than me, or I know that I'm a little bit stronger than, and I will have their live stream meets just going constantly on the TV, and I will just like have a hate campaign for an entire block. So anytime I'm talking about like raging out in the gym, that's usually what I'm talking about. And it works pretty well. But I will say sometimes like if my training's not going well and I have that mentality, then things are just really not going to go well. So there is a balance where like I need to find somewhere where like I can rage out and like have, you know, Agatha's picture on my TV and be able to use her as motivation as the goal, you know, and then also figure out like, you know, if, you know, my finger is making me not able to deadlift, like I can't really focus on going super hard because then it'll make the healing process take longer and then I can't do it. So I have to figure out how to have that rage, but also like be okay with like, okay, today is not the day to go hard. Because I have struggled with that previously. It's either all in all the time, or like I'm just enjoying the fact that I have like sets of 10 or something. So it's evolving still.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned Agatha there. Like she is literally, I think most people probably agree, like she is the biggest like inspiration to me at the moment. Like anytime I start sulking about like I posted this on my story a few weeks ago, like I was having a really bad period with bench, which was I was about 3 weeks out from comp, and like my opening weight felt terrible. Like something was just mentally off, like I was overthinking it. And I remember opening up my phone like mid-session and I saw her bench like 156 for a double, and I was like, why am I being so dramatic? I've got like 105 on the bar. Like, this is ridiculous. And from that moment, I just sort of like switched my head off and I was like, I can do this. Because I was like, if she's benching 156, like 20 kilos lighter than me, I can do this. I was going to ask you what your thoughts are with Agatha. So she's cutting back to 69, I believe, for Sheffield. What are your thoughts of like just, I mean, what she's been doing in the sport? Like, do you follow, I don't know if you're a big fan of powerlifting in terms of like, do you follow along with what other lifters are doing? But I'm assuming because it's your weight class, you're kind of keeping an eye.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I think so. I'm torn between like, I want her out so that she stops pushing things because it's going to take so long for the rest of us to catch up. But eventually we will all catch up to that. It's just going to be about how far she keeps pushing these records. But quite honestly, I kind of want to see how far she's going to push all of them, because I know she said that now she wants to go to the 84s to try to take those records as well. And honestly, I think a lot of like, especially the 69s, I think that record, it was due a big push. Maybe not this big of a push, but it was due. And I had always said, I think when I did that first raw meet, or I guess in 2021, when I hit that biggest equipped total that I ever hit, 598, like quite literally after I did Raw Nationals that fall, I was like 600. Like I want to beat my equip total, but Raw. And then everyone around me would tell me that that was crazy. They were like, 69s are never going to hit 6. And then Agatha comes along and hits 6. And now she's probably going to push it to like 630, 640. So I think, honestly, the further she pushes it, the better off powerlifting is going to be, regardless of how long it takes the rest of us to catch up. Because eventually we will catch up. So as much as like, I'm like, stop making it harder for me to be really good at this, I'm also along the lines of like, I need her to keep getting better and pushing all of these. So if she goes 84, I have a feeling that means she's not going to go back down to 69, but it seems like she doesn't really care. She's going to do whatever she decides to do, and, you know, power be with you if you're in her way.
Yeah, so, I mean, if I was a 69, I would absolutely be like, can you please leave? Please leave.
I mean, part of me wants that, yes, but the other part of me wants her to continue to prove that, like, I was right, that the 69s were always going to hit 600. So
it's like she is a phenom, like she is incredible. And like you said, like you're all going to get there as well. Like she's just ahead at the moment. Like we'll see what happens. And I love hearing her talk, because it's like she changes her mind on what weight class constantly, and I just think it's brilliant, because also she can do any of them. Like, and I was talking to one of my friends the other day. I don't know what your opinion on this would be. Like, I am a massive Amanda Lawrence fan. Like, I'm an 84 lifter. Like, I've always looked up to her, like, since I started. But I actually think Agatha might out total her, like, as a 69, which would be into, like, it's one thing her like going up to 84 and beating Amanda, but imagine if she does this at like 69 kilo body weight. It would,
honestly, I think it's going to make Amanda better if she ends up doing that.
100%.
Yeah. Agatha's just on a world domination tour, and honestly, I cannot wait to see what the rest of her career has. I'm so excited to continue to watch her, because I think she's still a junior, or did she just age out?
I'm not. She might have just aged out, or might be her. I think this might be her last year as a junior. Let me have a look.
Yeah, because I thought she was still a junior this year. This was her last year as a junior, which is honestly even crazier.
She's 21 this year, so she's got at least one more year. At least one more year as a junior. That's so crazy. Like, I know she is a full-time powerlifter, which will definitely help in a lot of ways. Like, she can focus more on recovery. And she's already said, like, she SBD 6 days a week because she has the time to do it and she has the schedule to do it. But like, imagine if she out totals Amanda as a 69. Like, I do think, like you said, it's going to make Amanda better, because I also think her hearing people say stuff like that is going to be making her so competitively driven. But it's just wild. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens with Agatha's lifts over even just the next year. Like, where is she going to be in a year's time?
Yeah, she better be doing this for, like, decades. I'm ready to see the world domination tour and how long it can go.
Absolutely. Obviously we're supposed to Agatha, but do you watch your other competitors quite closely as well, or?
For the 69s, I think we're an interesting group, because I feel like all of the 69s are pretty friendly with each other. And that's not usually the case in some of the weight classes. So I think I do follow, I think, almost everybody in my weight class, at least as far as like who has podiumed the last few years. And I make that an effort because I coach myself. So like, I don't have a secondary, I mean, I have my partner who helps coach me, and he's my game day coach. But like, for the most part, like when I'm planning and like trying to prep and like motivate myself, like I kind of have to do that reconnaissance, because otherwise, I don't have a secondary coach that's going to help do that for me. And like, tell me, bench needs to pick it up, 69, they're benching 3 now, like you're still at 270, like get it together. So I do have to follow everybody, but it helps that everyone in the 69s so far have been very nice.
I didn't know you coach yourself. I find that really interesting. I've coached myself since I started, which I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. That was silly. But obviously over the years I've learned. It's forced me to keep like learning as well. And I remember, like, I used to get a lot of shit from people for coaching myself. Like, they're like, oh, you've got so much potential, but you have no idea what you're doing, which back in the day, I didn't know what I was doing. They were definitely right to an extent. But again, I'm happy I've done it, because it's allowed me to learn as I get stronger and stuff as well, and figure out what works. And I think it's made me a better coach as well. I love hearing high level lifters say they coach themselves, because it makes me feel validated that I'm allowed to coach myself too.
Good.
I wanted to know what your experience with it. Have you always been self-coached, or is it a newish thing? What's your experience with coaching yourself, and how do you find doing that?
So in high school, we didn't really have like a systemic coaching approach. We had a football coach because our assistant principal, who was our head coach in high school, he's our assistant principal. So we couldn't just take time out of his day to come tell us, to work out and give us all of this stuff because he had to do his assistant principal job. So we had a football coach that would come and just write stuff on the whiteboard, and it was just basic strength and conditioning stuff, which probably wasn't very helpful for specialized strength athletes. So I guess originally I was also kind of coaching myself because I would go to the gym after school or before school every single day and do some other things too. And then when I got to college, we had team programming, which was kind of just the same thing. It was just a spreadsheet. So instead of on a whiteboard, it was in a spreadsheet and we all had copies of it. But there wasn't like a lot of personalization and there wasn't a lot of feedback going on, which makes sense when it's a really big group of kids they're coaching. So then I had a couple of people who offered to coach me for free. One into that 2019 Raw meet that I did. And then I had another one. I had a friend that was coaching me until Raw Nationals 2021. And then after that, I came to the decision. I was like, okay, so I have my degree now. I got a degree in kinesiology and exercise phys. So it didn't really help for powerlifting. I will be really honest about that. But I did get my degree. I've gotten to this point, I can't really afford, I just graduated college. The job that I have doesn't pay a whole lot. Like I can't really afford to hire the coach that I think I need to the extent that I need, I think. And I know that like my lifting style with a coach, like all of that communication, it's always been a little bit interesting. It's either me trying to muffle the way that I communicate so that it doesn't overwhelm someone, and then also like them knowing that they're not providing exactly what I need. So I just decided to coach myself. And that went pretty well because I was still talking with the last coach that I had, and we were still talking about some of these theories and strategies and stuff, which was really helpful. But yeah, I just kind of had to learn as I went. So trial and error and like lots of patience were definitely necessary. But I think it's a lot easier to identify when things are off, because I don't have to wait for someone to confirm. I can just immediately make that adjustment, and I know what the adjustment is just based on how things feel, which is really helpful. And I did try to hire a coach after 2022 USAPL Pro Finals. And the coach that I had at that time over that summer, the coach was fantastic. Like the things that I learned from him at the time were excellent. I think part of why it didn't work for me was, again, the communication style, and that's partially because I'm autistic, and so the way that my brain works is kind of like, well, I need to panic and get all of it out, and like I need all of this right now, and so it's just not helpful for me to have that need for like instantaneous feedback. So I just went back to coaching myself. But I have always hoped that like one day when I grow up, I will be able to hire a coach and it will go well. But so far, I think self-coaching has been a challenge, but also it's been a lot easier in some ways than having a coach.
I love that you just worded it, when I grow up. Again, I don't think that's what's happening
that a lot
here. I mean, I'm 26 too, and I think we're still so young, so that's fine. Yeah, no, I also agree with what you said about like instant feedback and like being able to change things if things don't feel right in the moment, like because you have the knowledge and also because you coach other people, it probably helps you look at things a bit more objectively as well. Like it's nice to be able to take that in control, like that control into your own training as well. So I definitely relate to you on that one. Do you think coaching yourself has helped you, because you do coach lifters as well? Do you think it's helped you as a coach as well?
Oh my goodness, yes. Because anytime I learn about a new strategy, I tend to try it on myself first, just to see like how it feels, how it works long term through an entire block, which has given me a lot more tools that I'm really confident in, like knowing how they work and how they feel and like what kind of adjustments they would be good for with athletes. But I will say I've kind of taken more of a backseat with coaching through this master's degree, partially because I just don't think like my bandwidth for being able to problem solve, I think, has just gotten a lot shorter the last couple of months. But after I graduate in December, I am really excited to kind of ramp that back up and, be able to be more in person with Powerlifting America meets, because I do miss handling in person. So I think switching, that was the biggest sacrifice I think I had to make, was to not be able to be in person coaching at local meets all the time. Because I do really miss that.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like it's like I'm in Britain, it's not so bad because I mean there are other federations besides like the British powerlifting affiliate, but it's the main one people do. So for like coaches in the UK, like it's not as hard to have that decision. But obviously with America, like USAPL and Powerlifting America are such big feds, like having to sacrifice handling at local meets. Like handling at local meets is so much fun as well.
It
Like
is, yeah.
there's nothing more fun than just going to a local meet and just handling your lifters and just spending the day with everyone. Like it's always so nice to do. Having to sacrifice that is just not fair. Like it's really not.
Yeah, it was a big decision. And I think that was a decision I knew was going to affect coaching in general for a little bit. But, I think as Powerlifting America grows and we get more meet directors, I think it'll become where, like, based on where you live, one of these feds will be bigger, but it's not like the overall fed is a lot different. So
Yeah.
I am looking forward to Powerlifting America getting bigger in Texas so that I can coach more often.
Yeah, definitely. What I don't know how many meets and stuff you've kind of been to, especially at a local level, but have you noticed a difference in the quality of meets between Powerlifting America and USAPL, or not massively?
Yes. So I think it has to do with the fact that USAPL is still bigger here. So Powerlifting America meets are just smaller in general, but that typically means that they're running a little more smoothly because there just isn't as much going on. And it could also be that the meet directors that, I enjoyed being around for meets switched. Not always the case, but I think so far what I've seen that's been the case.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense as well, like as Powerlifting America grows again, which I think it is probably going to grow just with a lot of people switching over anyway. More people will probably, like their favorite lifters will be in this fed, they're going to follow suit kind of thing. I also want to ask, so you coach yourself, like what does your training kind of look like, especially like how many days a week do you do each lift, like that sort of thing? Do you do like block structure, like do you typically do like a 4-week block or something like that, or do you train a bit differently? Just intrigued to see what your training's actually like.
So let me do my best to do like a small summary of training.
Yeah.
So typically I'll do roughly 6-week blocks. That's super variable just depending on like how things are feeling, if I need to start at a lower RPE, or if like the number of weeks to a meet from when I need to start prep is a little bit different. I'll split it into 2 smaller blocks or just make it like one giant block. So usually 6 weeks in a block. I don't typically worry so much about like the macro cycle, which I know a lot of coaches do, because that revolves around the meet itself, and that's not something I plan. It's just after a meet, I always do, this, because that helps me kind of reset my mind a little bit. But I try to train 4 times a week. I think going into nationals, I was at 5 times a week, but as my master's program has gotten a little more intensive, I've had to cut it down to 4. I'm squatting twice a week, deadlifting twice a week, and benching 4 times a week.
Nice. So with your meets and everything, like, do you typically run 6-week blocks into meets, or is it literally just a case of it just depends how things land?
Usually it's 5 to 6 weeks. That would be my ideal. I usually like the longer blocks because it lets me start with lower weights and then I can, gradually get up to the higher weights. Because I think if I go too heavy too quickly, that's where things for me start to fall apart. Which is also why I like to have more time in between meets so that I can take that time to slowly build back up.
Yeah, I think as well, like because you have other stuff going on, it's probably, I would assume it's nice to have more lighter weeks. Like if you're pushing every 3-4 weeks, like some people are, like that's not much time to decompress between your heavier sessions either. Like it's nice to just have that slow build. And yeah, it's 6 weeks blocks feel quite uncommon. Like I know I run them with quite a few people, and I think after this, because I'm now doing 2 back-to-back meets, like I need some time to just lift nothing. So I think it's something that I'm probably going to do too. But yeah, it's not the most common thing to hear of, but I think yeah, it's a really nice, like it's a nice length of time, and it gives you time to actually recover at the start of the block as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I will say sometimes it's 5. I think I just prefer 6, but 5 or 6. Sometimes I miscount and it's 5. But that's because I write my athletes' programs, and so I typically don't end up writing mine when I write theirs. I just push it off. And so I'm usually like updating my own program like when I go downstairs to start training. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should update this.
I like that you said that because I do the same thing. I don't have spreadsheets for my own training because I won't fill them in either. Like I have a diary. So I write on the day, like all I write is just literally squat, whatever weight. Like I literally write everything down. I finish my session. I write the next week, done. And then when I get to the end of a block, I'm like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I don't do it until I'm back in the gym for my next session. Like I literally will just write out my entire week there and then.
Yeah, for my first Pro Series meet, that was the first meet I had ever coached myself into. No pressure. And I think it was our Arnold meet, and I wrote all of my program days on sticky note. And I lost the sticky note, and so I was trying to find it so that I could like keep a record of like what my first block that I ever wrote for myself was, and it's gone forever. But then I went to a notebook. But because like I forget the notebook or like I don't take a picture of it, I just had to put it in a spreadsheet.
I love that you use a sticky note. That's so funny. That's so funny. I don't really have too many more questions. I wanted to ask you, obviously, what's coming up, what's next. I would assume it will be nationals next.
Yes. I was supposed to do a meet in Boston or in Massachusetts a couple weeks ago, but I was having some sciatica pain, and I think like my master's degree, because it's it's high stakes. Like I have to my defense needs to be successful, or I have to take another semester. I just decided we'll just kind of calm down. But it wasn't because anything significantly happened injury wise. The sciatica was more so like it's just getting on my nerves when I'm training, not so that it's like making it impossible to train.
Is it something that you regularly have to deal with? Like, is it a recurrent kind of injury, or is it just hit and miss? Sometimes is it quite a new thing?
No, so I had it. I had to take basically like a month off from training. I can't remember exactly what time. I think it was during COVID. I think it was during the shutdown. So that was good timing for me to like. I had a lot of time to like research rehab because I couldn't hire anyone at the time. I didn't have insurance. So I had to learn how to do my own rehab for sciatica pain. And it was really bad then. And I think just taking some time off and letting the muscles heal a little bit helped a lot, but it does pop up every now and then, but never to the same extent from the first time that I noticed it. But I always I have a really hard time identifying when there's pain or something going on in my body until it gets to a certain threshold. So, and it's usually the threshold that messes with deadlift most often. So that's not fun, but I have found a few things that help with it, and I usually know what causes it. Typically, sitting for too long, or if I'm driving or something, it'll flare up. Yeah. But most of the time, it's managed.
Yeah, and I guess as well, I would assume like focusing on studying and stuff, you're going to be sat down a lot more anyway. But also maybe the stress of it probably just didn't help with recovery either, and it's not worth it for a local meet if you don't have to do it to do nationals. Like you're already qualified for nationals, so. With nationals, exactly. So with nationals, obviously it's still far enough away that we don't really know what I say. It's not my nationals, but we don't really know what's going on with it. I think Chelsea posted that she's sitting quite heavy at the moment, but that's obviously because it's just not been her priority for a while, and she's just been letting herself kind of live. So it'd be really interesting to see if she cuts down as well. You've got Jackie in the 69s. I'm trying to think any other 69s. I feel like there are. Are there other 69s?
You just decided to go up a weight class.
I was just trying to think if she was a 63 or a 69. Yeah, she's just moved up, hasn't she? So yeah, that will be another really fun battle. It'll be really good to see. You've already said you watch Sheffield. You'll watch Sheffield, won't you? Are there any other things coming up that you're kind of excited for? I feel like it's a bit of a lull at the moment until Sheffield, but
yeah, meet wise, yeah. I am excited for me to finish this degree. I had only had, I think in 2022, that was the 1 year that I wasn't in school because I got my undergraduate degree, was just training and working. And then I decided to apply for a master's program in January 2023. So I am really excited to like not be in school and to just get to train, because I think the biggest bump that I had in like strength wise and like figuring out training and having everything like really locked in was when I wasn't in school. So it's good timing, and I'm very excited for that. But Sheffield's the next big one. So the powerlifting role is like letting us enjoy the holidays without a lot of stuff going on.
When do you finish your degree? When should you finish your degree? Is it soon?
Next Friday.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so
next Friday.
Obviously, if there's anything else you want to chat about, we absolutely can. But I also definitely want to get you. I mean, I know you've said obviously at the moment you're kind of putting a hold on coaching just until your degree's done, but it's nearly there. So are you going to be opening up more spaces once your degree's done?
Absolutely. I think in January we will officially post some open spots.
Yeah. And do you coach classic and equipped, or just equipped? No, just classic, sorry.
So I'm on a coaching team with my partner. So he typically will take equipped lifters because he has more space and he enjoys coaching equipped more. But I only take raw lifters.
Okay, Perfect. And if people want to reach out to you guys, how can they do that?
So you guys can DM me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is gabby.pda. We also have a Built Different Athletics Instagram. If you find that, you can DM that as well, and we'll get you guys connected.
Perfect. Was there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap this one up?
I don't think so. I think you asked all of like the really good questions.
Thanks. I mean, you're welcome back anytime if there is ever anything you wanted to talk about. It's been lovely having you on. Thank you for coming on and joining me. I really appreciate it. I feel like there's been a lot of things people can take away from the episode as well. Like, I think your answers to everything have been amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.